So Andrew, what makes an effective team?
On the face of it, effectiveness is quite straightforward. I mean, we would all look at leadership teams in organisations and say, oh, well, they're effective or they're not. That's my experience of having worked with lots of organisations. But when one starts to work with a team, one realises that actually effectiveness is a lot more complicated, in the sense that what a team is trying to do, particularly at the executive level, is to balance various goals and not become too focused or too preoccupied with one at the expense of another. So the sorts of goals that executive teams need to bear in mind are questions around growth, profitability, the long-term health and development of the organisation, attending to different stakeholder groups such as shareholders, unions, employees, but then also looking after the long-term reputation of the organisation. How is it seen?
Yeah.
And so effectiveness, for me, is the extent to which a team is aware of the tensions between these different goals and is able to balance them over the long term.
Yeah, and then of course it's not just the goals or the tasks that the team needs to attend to, but the individual members will also have some needs.
Such as? And what needs do you?
Well, I'm thinking about things like control, for example. So, you know, who's got how much control within the team, and sometimes it's also, you know, as simple as sort of a sense of belonging. So do I really belong in this team? Do I have some influence? Can I have some input here? Do I feel included? So all of these are quite important needs that team members will have. So for me, there's also something around the tension between the task and the goals, and also these individual needs.
Yes, and I think sometimes teams get too preoccupied for one at the expense of the other.
Yes.
Not necessarily consciously, but you know, so you might find a team is very, very focused on achieving its goals, but at the expense of team members, which has a long-term consequence, or becomes overly focused on whether team members like each other and are satisfied, but then don't achieve anything.
Yeah, and I think for me, a truly effective team is actually one that can manage that tension.
And is that, and so we can think about that, you know, there's so much change happening in organisations that tension is continually changing over time, and the team needs to learn how to manage that tension.
Yeah.
And so we can think about effectiveness ultimately is the team's capacity to learn.
I define leadership as the crossroads between passion and competence.
Holding yourself to the standard that you expect out of every one of your employees.
Organizing a group to achieve one common goal.
I define leadership by service.
It is about being accountable to the people of the organization as well as the client.
One of the biggest challenges for our management team is to be able to plan for tomorrow while dealing with the realities of today.
Staying focused, efficient, and productive.
Needs to understand the needs of the customer, and they also have to have the knowledge to back that up.
Balancing the duties as an owner-manager while trying to build and grow a company.
To serve those young people and young adults that need job training, that need their schools improved, that need high-quality education.
Strong management team, in the face of criticism, work together to succeed in the marketplace.
Good, honest communication.
It's all about self-starters, people who can produce quality results.
I think a strong management team is able to fulfill the sense of purpose by building a consensus within their organization.
They need to get along well and model respect for each other to the rest of the organization.
The main way that we set an example for our employees is being accessible.
It's important to really, no matter what the obstacle is, there's always a solution.
We have a big emphasis on treating all the employees with respect.
It's important that everyone on the management team be rowing in the same direction.
Despite how difficult it is to thrive in the marketplace, that we can say thank you and we can apologize when we make a mistake.
The nature of the task of the top team in any organisation is what makes it difficult. They're there to sustain the business, which means that they have to make tough decisions, increasingly tough decisions in today's climate about who we are, what we want to be, and how we're going to get there. And in order to do that, it involves us asking and answering some pretty difficult questions questions that those people around the table will have different views about. They legitimately have different perspectives, different pressures, different priorities. That's what makes the decision-making situation a difficult one. That's what makes the task a difficult one. And in a climate such as we have now, with the challenges and changes that are really requiring businesses to think really hard about some pretty fundamental questions, those discussions are inevitably debates which are often very challenging, and most teams don't do it very well. Say that it's difficult because you don't want to be taken by surprise. You don't know what is going to lurk in there. When it starts, what's going to come out. Concerned about other people losing their temper, concern about things getting personalised, concern about there being casualties in such a discussion and a debate, not having the confidence that we can actually discuss something in a level way which is fundamental, critical but sensitive in the business without people losing their temper and as it becoming totally dysfunctional and not hitting the mark. So the measures, the ideas come straight from that. What top teams do and to do it well is they prepare for it. Prepare the people, give people advance warning. This is what we're going to discuss. Perhaps change where it is you have that discussion, or sit in different places, or something which says this is a different kind of conversation we're going to have, something that marks it. Perhaps they would also recognise, and this is important, recognise that getting into the zone of uncomfortable debate is what we are here for. That's what we're paid for. That we are here to ask and answer those difficult questions. So it's normal. What we have to think about is how do we do it well? And how do we do it well is to recognise that it's uncomfortable, to recognise that it takes certain skills. What are those skills? There are skills to do with being politically aware. If I know where different people are likely to come from, if I understand and respect their agendas, it makes it so much easier to negotiate a discussion, for example. Emotionally aware. Do you recognise when your own emotions are rising up? Do you control those emotions? Do you recognise the impact if you don't? Do you recognise the impact on the dynamics if you don't do that? And thinking about keeping the discussion productive. What do I mean? I mean keep the focus on the business, not the personal. Keep the focus on the issue, not the personalities. That makes it so much easier for everybody to discuss a difficult issue.